The girl left me for a richer guy, but apparently the wedding turned out to be a complete disaster. This happened many years ago, but I've been wanting to tell this for a while. Back in the happy-go-lucky days of the late 1990s, I had a college girlfriend, Courtney, and like many a young man, I thought she was the one. That turned out very inaccurate. Courtney decided to start seeing someone else, Mike. However, she neglected to tell me about it, and started seeing Mike while we were still a couple. I knew of him, mostly that his dad was rich and he was destined to follow in Dad's footsteps and attend Harvard Law and work at a prestigious law firm, which he ultimately did from what little I have heard over the years, but that is for another day. Upon graduation, all three of us were in the same year. Courtney and Mike decided to break the news to me that they were engaged. When I asked, very loudly, why, Courtney just shrugged and said she needed a husband with prospects, translation, money. And to add the cherry on top, the job that I was offered upon graduation announced there was corporate restructuring and the position had been eliminated. So, I did what any recent college graduate with whose job plans disappeared and whose girlfriend just ditched him for a richer guy. I joined the Army. I thought I would do this Army thing for a few years before figuring something out. But by the time I finished with OCS, Ranger School, and assigned to a regiment, it was September 2001. I'm sure you can guess how busy those years became. A year later, as my first tour in Afghanistan was winding down, I received a DVD from Jamie, a college friend who also knew Courtney and Mike and was well aware of what happened between us. A note with the DVD said, "Please watch, you will love it." The DVD was their wedding. It looked like a high-end venue, and the bride was looking every bit as beautiful as I remembered. Things were going as expected until the minister said the speak now part, and that was when the gates of hell opened. A man stood, someone I did not know, and demanded how could Courtney go through with this. Courtney's face went white and pleading when she saw him. The man, who I dubbed Rick, wanted to know how Courtney could do this him. Welcome to the club. Then Rick dropped the bomb. Courtney was carrying their child. Mike's face went red as he looked at Rick, then at Courtney, realizing that the woman he was about to marry, the woman who cheated on me with him, was more than likely pregnant and not by him. But that was not the best part. As the wedding guests were probably processing what Rick said, the camera turned as someone else yelled. This time a woman, dubbed Mary, who was very pregnant herself. Any shred of moral high ground Rick had was gone when Mary cradled her belly and demanded to know how Mike was going to take care of their child. The DVD ended with the parents of the not-wedded couple pulled their respective kids aside and left the venue. It did not take a genius to figure out that the wedding was called off. And Jamie's note was right. I did love it. It made my day to see the woman who carelessly broke my heart so publicly embarrassed. I showed it to my comrades who found it hilarious. Over a year later, this time in Iraq, that DVD would provide some joy on days when shit had really hit the fan. I only heard bits and pieces of what happened after the ill-fated wedding. As I said earlier, Mike did go on to be a lawyer and apparently did well. Courtney got a job and went on with her life. I can only guess that they wound up with the other person or at least raised their kids. Beyond that, I know little and care even less. As for me, I stayed in the Army. I would return to Afghanistan and Iraq more than once. I would serve in places I'm still not allowed to discuss and deal with enemies who made bin Laden look like Gandhi. But those are other stories. Time for second story, let's start it. Neighbor was stealing water from my supply, so I ruined him. I live in Asia and just purchased a new house. Now, the previous owners were family friends who needed cash urgently and haven't been living in my country for nearly 3 years. So I got it for a great price in the middle of the capital city. The sale was finalized at the start of this month, and I moved in right after. The house was definitely a fixer-upper, as the previous owners had left mid-renovation and the main door was locked with just a padlock, not even a door lock. The house had no gate, meaning anyone could just walk right on in. The first day I moved in, someone's bike was parked in the garage. I just parked on the road on the same day I had a gate installed. An angry man was knocking on my gate later, and I didn't bother answering, but through my window I could see him giving up and taking the bike after 15 minutes. So already, I wasn't digging the neighborhood. But I didn't have any incidents after that, aside from people not knowing that this was no longer an abandoned house. So my gate was blocked more often than never, but a no parking sign on my gate fixed that issue. Last week, I was having a shower in my bathroom, and I noticed my water pressure was lower than usual. I also heard my next-door neighbor's water pump going. Now, this neighbor, an old guy, lived in a 3-storied house, the first being the lowest and the one he lived in. The other 2 floors were rented out to tenants. This guy wasn't happy about the house being sold and voiced many concerns to my friends, the previous owners. He was super angry about it, and my friends did warn me, but I'm a 6-foot guy with 3 dogs. No way he was doing anything, and yep, he didn't. So with this living situation, a water pump is needed to pump water to the tanks on the roof, since the public supply's pressure is not enough to get it up 3 stories. Now, I heard the water pump going and immediately was suspicious. Sure, coincidences exist, but it wouldn't hurt to check it out. I waited till his pump turned off and then turned on different taps in the house. Sure enough, the pressure was back to normal. This made me even more suspicious, but if he was stealing water, it also made sense. The water bills have been going up over the years this house wasn't lived in, but the house also had some water leaks. So it was chalked up to that, even if the bills were too high to be caused just by leaks. Now it started to make sense. At some point in the last 3 years, this old miser thought he'd save the cost of paying for water and waltzed into the property and is siphoning water from my lines. I couldn't find where exactly he was siphoning water from, but after checking my pressure multiple times, I was pretty sure. So I sat on it for a few days, thinking if I should confront him, go the legal path, or just let it be. Now, water in my country is very cheap. My total bill, even with washing 3 animals, a car every week, and watering my garden, only costs like $5 per month, even with the neighbor also stealing some of it. But it wasn't about how much I was paying or who was paying for it. It's about entitled old people who think that they're deserving of using other people's resources without paying for it, and then getting away with it. It didn't sit right with me, and I really wanted to teach him a lesson. What I did was really simple. I just turned off my water from the mains. I wouldn't have to break into his property, nor would I be breaking any laws. It was the best way of getting back at him without needing to even lift a muscle. So on Monday, just 4 days ago, I waited till the pump flicked on and turned off the supply. Now, the way household tanks work in my country is that there's a ball valve in the tank which detects the level of water and turns on the pump. If the level doesn't increase, the valve stays open, which electronically sends a signal to the pump to stay on until the level gets to a point at which the valve closes and also shuts off the pump. However, the level wasn't increasing, and anyone knows that starving a pump of water isn't a good idea. This way, my expectation was that I'd burn out his pump and cause issues with his tenants. What I didn't account for is that his pump running constantly would mess up the fuses by constantly drawing power overnight and absolutely destroy his wiring. If he decided to upgrade his household wiring to a more modern standard, this would have been prevented. This house clearly still had 90-0 wiring. At around 3 a.m., I heard all residents in the house waking up and talking in hushed voices about why just their house in the neighborhood doesn't have power or water. I found out about the power part because the tenants devolved into shouting at their landlord. Our tenant protection laws are very important, and power and water are classed as essential even on a state level. Cutting those services are grounds for lawsuits, unless due to weather or some other unavoidable reason. In this case, the landlord is responsible for keeping the house wiring up to date and in good condition, alongside the supply of water. So the tenants were not happy, and one of them immediately moved out 2 days later when it was informed that water and power will not be returning the very same day this happened. Both tenants in the 2 floors lodged a complaint with the police, and if a person is in clear breach of laws, the police have the authority to fine or penalize the person without a court judgment. It can be challenged in court if the person thinks that they were unfairly penalized, but they still have to pay the fines and will only be refunded if and when the court finds the fines unlawful. So now, the landlord lost both tenants and has to pay a fine of $500, which is a lot of money in our country. He also has to refund the security deposits of both tenants and cannot rent out until both issues are fixed, which will cost him more money. As of right now, he's moving out on Sunday to his daughter's place since he cannot afford to live alone. The tenants were his only source of income, and he's a retired mechanic, so he has no other income. He did find out why the motor kept drawing power, overloaded the wiring, and burned out. He came by to my gate and asked me if I turned off my water, and I said, oh yeah, my tank had a new leak on a pipe, and I turned it off till the next day until the plumber came by to fix the issue. Y'all, the look on his face. He kept a straight one, but I just knew he was holding back. He just said, oh okay, and went back inside. Not sure if he knows I know, but I don't care because he can't do anything. I'm getting a plumber down next week to correct my plumbing and remove any pipes that leave my property. So I got rid of my water issue and a neighbor who could potentially be a pain in the ass by simply flicking a tap off. Two birds, one stone, I'd say. TLDR, bought an abandoned house. Neighbor was siphoning water from my supply. Turned off my water supply when the motor was running. Motor burned out the wiring in the house and cut off water and power to him and his tenants. Tenants lodged police complaints and the landlord got fined, is now destitute and forced to move in with his daughter. What you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.